In 2008, the United Kingdom was the indisputable financial superpower of Europe. London was funneling more global capital than almost any city on Earth, and the average British family enjoyed a standard of living that was the envy of the continent. Fast forward to today. According to updated economic projections from the IMF and World Bank, by the end of this decade, the average household in Poland, a country that was rebuilding itself from scratch just 30 years ago, will have a higher purchasing power than the average family in Great Britain. How did one of the greatest economic empires in human history end up breaking its own engine? The truth isn't just a simple story about Brexit. It's a story of a nation that quietly stopped investing in its future, dismantled its industrial core, and walked directly into a self-made economic trap. And the data shows the damage might be permanent. To understand how Britain fell behind, we first have to understand how it tricked itself into thinking it was rich. Starting in the 1980s and accelerating through the 2000s, the UK made a fundamental strategic bet. It decided to pivot almost its entire economy away from manufacturing and physical production, placing all its chips on high-end financial services, real estate, and London's banking elite. For a long time, the strategy worked brilliantly, on paper. Money poured into London from every corner of the globe. Foreign investors bought up British property, energy grids, and infrastructure. But behind the gleaming skyscrapers of the capital, a dangerous structural imbalance was forming. While London turned into a hyper-wealthy city-state, the rest of the country was starved of capital. Productivity, the single most important driver of long-term economic growth, completely flatlined after 2008. In fact, between 2010 and 2024, Britain's productivity growth slowed to its lowest rate in over 200 years. The nation wasn't actually getting wealthier through innovation or production. It was living off cheap foreign debt, inflated housing prices, and financial engineering. Then came 2016, and the ultimate economic gamble. When the UK voted to leave the European Union, it did something no major industrial democracy had ever done. It deliberately chose to raise trade barriers with its largest, closest, and most lucrative trading partner. Whatever your political views on Brexit, the cold hard economic numbers are undeniable. The UK's Office for Budget Responsibility estimates that leaving the single market resulted in a long-term 4% drag on British GDP. But the real damage wasn't just tariff paperwork, it was business investment. Before 2016, international corporations used Britain as the gateway to Europe. The moment the UK left, foreign direct investment plummeted. Capital that would have built factories in the Midlands or tech hubs in Manchester was diverted to Poland, Germany, and the Netherlands. For between 2016 and 2025, while US business investment grew by over 25%, British business investment stalled completely. The UK didn't just lose access to a market of 450 million consumers. It lost its reputation for economic predictability. This brings us to the most shocking comparison in modern European economics: Poland versus Great Britain. While Britain was cutting itself off from trade and allowing its public infrastructure to age, Poland was doing the exact opposite. Leveraging EU development funds, a highly educated workforce, and aggressive deregulation, Poland quietly transformed into the manufacturing powerhouse of Central Europe. Since 2004, Poland's economy grew by over 200%. Meanwhile, Britain hit a wall. Consider this. In Britain, building a single electricity pylon, or a few miles of high-speed railway, now takes decades of legal battles and costs up to 10 times more than in continental Europe. Planning laws in the UK became so restrictive that the country stopped building the essential things required for a modern economy: houses, nuclear power plants, and modern transport networks. As energy prices surged globally, British businesses were hit hardest because the country had virtually no long-term energy storage strategy, unlike Norway, which built massive sovereign reserves, or France, which relied on nuclear power. Britain became an economy with high costs, low investment, and stagnating wages. By 2026, Britain finds itself backed into a corner with almost no easy moves left on the board. The government's national debt has topped 100% of GDP, the highest level in over 6 decades. To fund growing healthcare costs for an aging population and service that debt, the UK government was forced to raise taxes to their highest level since World War II. Here is the fatal loop Britain is currently trapped in. High taxes and high energy costs discourage new businesses from investing. Low investment leads to zero productivity growth. Zero productivity growth means wages remain stagnant. Stagnant wages mean less tax revenue for the state, forcing taxes even higher. When young professionals and entrepreneurs look at this math, many are choosing to leave. For the first time in modern history, Britain is facing a brain drain, losing skilled workers to Australia, the US, and even emerging hubs in Eastern Europe. The downfall of the UK economy wasn't caused by a natural disaster or a military defeat. It was the slow, cumulative result of 20 years of short-term thinking, missed investments, and disastrous policy choices. Britain remains the fifth largest economy in the world today by nominal GDP, backed by world-class universities and global influence. But unless it drastically fixes its planning laws, slashes energy costs, and rebuilds its industrial strategy, its decline from a global leader to a stagnant economy will only accelerate. The story of Britain is a warning to the rest of the world. Wealth is not permanent. You either invest in the future or the future passes you by. Is the UK facing a lost decade, or can it reinvent itself once again? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this economic breakdown, hit the subscribe button to help Moveconomy grow. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.